Welcome back to the Professor. Today, you guys, we're going to talk about knolling. Knolling, however you want to say it. I'm going to pronounce it knolling for the purpose of this lecture. But knolling, most of you guys know in a slightly different term. If you've been on social media, especially on Instagram, which is obsessed with knolling, literally the beauty is in the organization. So this is going to give you guys a chance to organize and be very, very mathematical almost in the arrangement of your photos. And I'm going to give you guys some examples and we'll get into this a second. So what is knolling? It's the process of arranging related objects in parallel or 90-degree angles as a method of aesthetic organization. Now, what does that bring down to? It literally means you just leave the exact same amount of space in your objects and make them almost form like a grid-like pattern, right? Where does knolling come from? Well, it was first used by Andrew Cromwell, a janitor at Frank Gehry's furniture fabrication shop. At the time, right, Gehry was designing chairs for Knoll, which is a company famously known for Florence Knoll's angular furniture. I've never had their furniture and I don't even know what that is. But Andrew would arrange any displaced tools at right angles on all surfaces and called this routine knolling, in that the tools are arranged in right angles, similar to Knoll furniture. So strictly speaking, you guys, there is sort of a certain technical approach, right? Some people take things apart and lay them out, but you have to pay super attention to the spacing between them and how they're photographed, right? So most of you guys may have heard knolling is called flat lay photography, and it's called flat lay for obvious reasons. A lot of people use that term. I had never heard the term knolling before, but I wanted to give you guys the correct term, like where it came from, and didn't just want to call it flat lay, because flat lay sounded, I don't know. It just sounded like too obvious, I guess, as a name for this. It just didn't sound, I don't know, dude. It just something with flat lay photography just didn't sound. It didn't sound like organizing in a aesthetic composition to me. So I thought knolling was a more technical term. Anyway, this is an example, you guys, right? This looks like stuff found on the ocean or near the ocean, including pollution and other stuff, right? Yeah. So I'm looking at this and I can see sort of how they've laid this out. Not only is there a theme, an overall theme, but there's an even space all the way around the border, and all the pieces are evenly spaced in a symmetrical manner. Not to mention, not only is it a theme of content, right, of the certain type of content they pulled maybe out of the ocean in terms of junk, but there's a color shift. If you look at the top left corner, it goes yellow down to light and then green and then brown. So you can sort of follow the color shift all the way through also, which I think is fantastic. Here's another example, a little easier for me to look at, less busy. This is an example of maybe what you guys might be able to do. But I mean, look at how they put all this stuff together, right? I think it's sort of, it's beautiful, right? And again, look at the technical aspects, right? Everything is systematically spaced apart. There's the exact same space between all objects. And then if you look on the outside of the border, there's space on the outside of the border too, which gives you this sort of artistic, almost it's like a mat, like an artistic mat or something. And it makes it look a little more artistic and less sloppy. Now, there are some people that do flat lay photography and they extend the objects out of the frame. And that's sort of aesthetic also. And that's been loosely based, or that's actually been based on this type of photography. They just decided to get a little crazy with it and do some fun stuff. And we won't be doing that. We're going to be doing this very symmetrical version of it, right? Like this, where everything is super symmetrical. There is a little bit of a border, and any distortion, you guys, has been fixed in this, right? This photographer here, he takes all of his, I think this is Jim Golden, but these are all of his bike accessories, and he literally put them all out on the floor and then photographed them on a piece of blue paper, right? And if you're wondering, yeah, it's a big piece of background paper in a studio, and he shot down at it. Here's another one. I think this is fascinating. This guy took this lawnmower apart, and these are all the aspects and tools of it. I think this is really fascinating. I don't expect you guys to do anything like this. This looks like it has a couple of hundred pieces to it, and I think we're going just at 10. So that's a beautiful example. This sewing one is a fantastic example. If any of you sew, I mean, look how beautiful this looks. They actually made it in the form of a sewing machine, right? So absolutely beautiful. Here's some examples of IG accounts that use knolling, right? If you guys want to look at these for some inspiration, there's Flat Lays, and they give some really good examples on stuff. Love their account. Beautiful idea, beautiful work. This one I really love too. I thought this was beautiful, very simple. And I think this one here, Louisa Maria, I think she has some really good ideas for maybe you guys, right? With dealing with less images, because I think our total is 10. And here's the White House, which I think it was all white, which is literally why they call it White House. Look how they balance the leaf at the top with the leaf at the bottom, right? So it wasn't so like the visual weight was just the one leaf. They put a leaf on the bottom to sort of balance it out, which I think was a great idea. Right? This starts to get into, you guys, of like some of these accounts do a lot of branding work for people and a lot of like tabletop photography, which is what flat lay photography sort of is morphed into, right? A lot of like environmental and lifestyle shots of, your coffee cup and your book on your page and your soft, your soft little mittens and then, pens and paper and stuff, right? So these sort of tell a story, they're thematic in nature, and they're aesthetically pleasing to look at simply from the organization and how they've been organized. So take a look at these, you guys, and this is sort of what I'm looking for in terms of homework, right? It should have a very meticulous, thought out arrangement to it, right? Definitely something you probably would have a hard time doing last minute. So if you're listening to this, I'd start thinking about your stuff right now, right? Don't worry so much, you guys, about the background. Any like tabletop or something will do. Or if you're working with a smaller stuff, any like piece of construction paper, I don't know, purchased at the dollar store for $1 would work. But yeah, these are all examples. Now the technical aspects of this are going to be super important, right? This is a little more of a technical shoot. One, you've got to shoot down on your image, which oftentimes when you're shooting down, there's like distortion and you're not exactly above it or it's not exactly symmetrical, and we'll fix that in the editing process, right? Two, you arrange your images in an organized composition with the same space between all the pieces. Okay, you don't want to have irregular spacing. Your spacing needs to look exactly the same between everything you lay down in your shot. Three, you must remove all distortion, which could impact the symmetry of your image, okay? If you shoot down on an object, most of our cameras and our smartphones are wide-angle lenses. If you do that, there's going to be some distortion on the corners, which you're going to want to correct in Lightroom, okay? So there's a Lightroom tutorial on how to correct that. There's also a Lightroom tutorial, guys, on maybe setting your stuff up and sort of how you set it up and maybe the light you're going to use. So go ahead and check those tutorials out and have fun and good luck with your assignment this week.